Welcome to Southern Radio. We are back with little Dave with another episode.
What's up?
And I told him I had a surprise topic for him, even though the main topic him and I discussed at length. I was walking by the mirror this morning when I got dressed, and I was thinking to myself, like, the people who do bodybuilding, anything kind of physique enhancement, I would love to be inside of one of the individuals' minds who they look in the mirror and they're actually pleased with what they see back. Like, I know that may sound kind of grim or down, but there's been times in my life where I'm like, fuck, I've made progress, but I've never looked in the mirror and been like, oh man, like this is fucking there. And I know people say that they are and they're happy and thrilled, but I always want to know, like, deep in their soul, are they truly happy with that? To think you're like me, like you will, but you're like, you use the mirror as a reason to train and eat.
Mhm. Oh, exactly.
And I don't know. So I think some people say, "Oh, Chris, it's a lack of confidence," or "How in the hell could you at your body weight like walk around and look like that?" Like I realize that I'm bigger and probably more muscular than 90+% of the human population, but I guess I always hold myself to a higher standard of people I grew up looking at in magazines and videos and the pros I've hung around. Like I'm like, no, like that is what I view as physical perfection. And even listening to like, I remember watching that Generation Iron video when Phil Heath's like, man, I won the 2013 Olympia and I was picking my photos apart. I'm like, in my mind, I think, fuck, man, I'll be happy then. But I'm sure just like him, he's like, man, I'd like to see this better and this better and that better. So
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that there truly is anyone out there who looks in the mirror and they're like, this is it? Or do you think even that arrogant ego facade is just like pretend?
I mean, there's definitely some delusion out there.
Okay, yes, agreed. Yeah, yep.
But I mean, in reality, I think a lot of, at least in bodybuilding, most of us, I mean, like body dysmorphia is kind of a fun topic because, like, to be blunt, most people probably think they have it. It's probably not true.
Right.
Like I can't tell you how many 160-pound dudes are like, oh man, I have body dysmorphia. I always feel small. It's like, hate to break it to you. I don't want to be a dick, but like,
No one
if
knows you
you're
lift
if you're
weights.
if you're 5'11" and you weigh 170, like you're not big.
Right.
That's just a fact.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always laugh. Angela used to teach group exercise classes and things, and she had a guy in there once who was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm so muscular. And I guess she laughed or joked, like, you're kidding, right? And the guy was like, oh, I'm huge. There's no one around here. But she's like, my husband outweighs you by probably 100 pounds, bro.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I didn't consider that. Like, because I mean, stereotypically, I'm sure there's some people who are really ego driven who love the way they look. But I guess I've never been the type of person to have something or acquire a physique or win somewhere, whether that be on the football field or in a bodybuilding show and think, man, like this is it. It's always like, what's next? Like, how can I take this and get better off of it? Um,
Mhm.
so maybe that's a different type of mindset than what others may view as their, because I've trained lots of people who are like, oh, Chris, if I can just lose 100 pounds, I'll be good. And we lose 100 pounds, and I'm like, I'm happy, I'm thrilled. I just want
Yeah.
to keep this. And where to me, I'd get there and be like, okay, cool. Like the 100 pounds of fat's gone. Like now what can we do? Like,
Mhm.
can we add muscle here? Can we, make this area tighter? Or like, I guess my thought process, like always would be like, how can I change my shape or improve my shape? I guess maybe a better way to say that. So, which I think will be something if I'm taking this to the next level, like which will be really weird for me when I stop bodybuilding competitively. It's like, what do you chase physically then? Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. It'll just be a slow decline of my current level of musculature. Like, yeah, that's a weird topic to bridge. I don't want to think about that right now, but
Yeah. Yeah. For real. But yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it's like one of those things. Is like I think like if you're getting into the sport of bettering yourself, there's probably not an end to where that bettering stops.
agreed.
You
Yes.
know, because I mean that's what builds complacency.
Yeah.
And I mean that that's a different point because so many people stop just because they get complacent.
Yeah.
not because they don't want to get further.
Yes.
Because I mean, I think David Goggins said that most people stop when things get when the easy stops working.
Yes.
You know,
Agreed.
for me and you, that was when we started. Like, we figured that out pretty early on.
Agreed.
Because, like, putting on muscle, it got hard really early on. Where some people are, they can put on muscle easier, and that's why. I think I had this discussion with my girlfriend. Like, a lot of people go to the gym and become gym enthusiasts because they're good at it,
Yeah. Agreed.
inherently good at it. Like, most people, like, if you pick up, like, some people they pick up art, like painting and shit, because they're good at it. Like, when they first do it,
Yes.
and then you get weirdos like me and you who we suck at it, and we're like, I'm gonna decide to make myself good at this shit,
Yep.
and and like learning all this shit the hard way
Yeah.
versus having natural talent.
Yes.
And the people who have the natural talent, they get to a point where their talent ends, and they don't go further than that because it's hard. Me and you, our talent ended like 2 years into training.
Yes.
So at that point, we had to figure out, all right, cool. Well, I still like this.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how can I figure this out?
I think I like
But
that. I think I
then
like
that's
the
where we
thought
had
bubble.
our complacency line. Like, if I got complacent when things actually started being difficult in bodybuilding, I'd probably still be 140.
Yeah. I would be under
You know,
200. Easy.
yeah,
Yeah. I think I've always enjoyed the process of like getting my teeth kicked in and then being resilient off of that.
yeah,
Like, and I think that may be an area where most people don't relish in, but I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's almost like that Rocky line where it's like, how many times can you get hit and get back up? But at the same time, every time you stand back up and come back to me, or I thought like I go back to the dinner table, eat another meal, or go back in the gym to train, like I'm 1 centimeter of a fraction closer than where I was the previous action. And it's
hmm
like, okay, cool. Like if I continue just to keep putting like little strokes into that tree of chopping it down, eventually it's gonna come the fuck down. And I don't know. I've always enjoyed that process. It's like, oh, cool. Like, because it was, if it was so easy, I always wonder if you take that for granted so that when it does get hard, you're like, fuck this. It's not even worth it, man. Like,
hmm
if I gained 55 pounds of muscle in 2 years and it's like, that was super simple. Now I have to fight for a decade to gain the next 10. Like, yeah, bro.
yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, I think, to start this out on is, you know, I think you have to find in this world at least the ability to be resilient is a character trait that you must learn
yeah,
because everyone hits resistance at some point. Even the people who are at the very, very fucking top. And
hmm
that can become resistance for a lot of reasons. That can be an injury, that could be a breakup, that could be financial stress, that could be you've topped your genetics out, that could be you have to find a new way to train because it's making you injured, or it's that old way of training isn't working anymore, and you cannot be married to fucking anything. Um, I'll tell this story really fast. Like I grew up smashing sweet potatoes when I was younger in bodybuilding because that's what everyone told you had to eat for a carb source and brown rice. And eventually my stomach was like, fuck you, no more. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what am I going to eat now? That I've met people who continue to pound through sweet potatoes because they think that's what you have to do. Where I was like, huh, I'm going to give this jasmine rice a go. I'm going to give it a shot. Okay, cool. And white potatoes, like, okay, maybe they're not as on the same area of a glycemic index, but fuck, if it doesn't make my stomach hurt, let's give it a try. And that's right
yeah,
about the time that I met John and was like, he was always talking about cream of rice. And I was like, well, I've never had that before. I've only eaten oatmeal, or I've also tried cream of wheat, but I personally never liked that.
hmm
Let's see. And it's like, huh, all these three different food sources that I rotated in all make my stomach not hurt and not be distended. Cool, let's give it a shot. And then I remember when I started to introduce that to some of my clients, and fellow trainers would be like, Chris, I cannot believe you're letting them eat white rice. I'm like, yeah. Now, no one eats brown. Well, I guess I can't say no one. Most of the bodybuilding world does not eat brown rice. And that was 15 years ago.
yeah,
So, it's kind of like we talked about in the last episode, I guess, right? Like you just have to kind of be adaptable, and that's the biggest thing. And then resiliency. So
yeah.
the topic I told you I'd love to talk about today is just coaching in general. And the reason that spurred this thought is the massive hatred towards certain coaches in particular right now. That just happens to be Matt Jensen. But over my course of watching and reading bodybuilding magazines and now with the internet, I think that everyone picks a villain, so to speak, every so often, and they just demonize them. Where at one time they were viewed as the guru. Like I remember back when Sean Ray was calling Chad Nichols a killer and just saying he killed his clients and he was going to put more people in the grave. And um, I know there was a period of time where people were saying like, oh, any coach that uses DNP or any coach that fill in the blank does this, like is just straight garbage. And they would just rake them over the coals. And I think that anyone who's coached enough clients can generate negative reviews, right? For
Mhm.
whatever reason. Um, but I think the bigger picture to take away from all this mess is selecting the right coach for you, if that's the route you're going to go, because coaching isn't cheap. Even the cheapest coach on the planet, outside of the ones that are given away for free, are still a financial investment. So,
Mhm.
in my mind, what would you say are one or two of the first things you would look for if someone came to you and said, "Hey, Dave, like I want to hire a coach. What should I look for?"
Um, Knowledge base, not just knowledge base, but experience base.
Agreed.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go, they're certified as they're basically a doctor of movement, right?
Yep.
And they that's all they can think about now. They can only think about how things move,
Yeah.
and they don't think about how things actually work in real life.
Yes.
They're like, this works in a laboratory. It's like, does it work you know, in the city?
Right.
Does it work with someone who has a 9 to 5?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
does it work with someone who does construction in the day and wants to train at night?
Right.
Like, okay, let's see you apply it. And that's when they run into these pitfalls because they've never actually applied it. They just read about it.
Right.
Or I mean, today's world, no one reads anymore. So I mean, they YouTubed it,
Right. Yes. Yep.
and then the application sucks. And
Yep.
it's like, oh, you haven't done this yourself? They're like, well, I've read about it. Isn't that the same thing as doing it?
No.
Yeah. And like, it's like that's the stuff that drives me up a wall. Some coaches these days, like, I feel like people can't have like regular thought. Like, bodybuilders have always been really good at figuring out how things work for bodybuilding.
Agreed. Yep.
Like, we started doing length and partials like 20 years ago, like just the bottom ends of bicep curls because we couldn't curl it anymore, or hamstring curls, or chest flies,
Right.
and now it's like, oh, length and partials are the coolest thing. It's like, this isn't even fucking new. Like, where have you guys been? Like, this is like 3 decades
Right.
old.
Agreed.
And they can't think outside of the box of versus like someone's like, oh, you have to use test and masteron, otherwise all other compounds are garbage. Is like, you read that and they just automatically assume that's the case versus like, having the knowledge base of trying them.
Right. Yes.
I mean, Paul, what's his bucket? He just posted that on Instagram the other day, and he was like, the difference between pharmaceutical and generic growth hormone.
Oh yeah. Barnett. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and how many people were like, "Well, generics are the same thing as grow as Serostim," and it's like, and they're like, he's like, "Have you used Serostim?" They're like, "I have not." It's like, so you've driven a Honda Civic, and you're saying a Lamborghini is the same thing, but you've never driven the Lamborghini.
Right.
They're both fucking cars, I guess.
Those motherfuckers don't know about that blue top.
Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. That's always a struggle for me, right? Where I've always felt like there is a good amount of people who are great at like what I will call like a regurgitating parrot. They're great
Mhm.
at retaining knowledge, they're great at learning knowledge, but actually taking that out of your brain and extrapolating that to people is hard because people are amoebas in my mind. Everyone's not the same, and it doesn't always work for everyone. So what happens when you have this rich knowledge base, but you have no fluidity in your coaching style? It's like, no, this is how we're going to do it. And if you don't work, then fuck off. And I've never appreciated that coaching style because listen, there's lots of coaches out there who have systems and a lot
Hmm.
of teams that have systems. They only post the wins, right? They're
Yeah,
like, oh, well,
they got 1,000 clients, but three of them win an overall. It's
correct.
like you want to know the ratio on that number?
Fucking horrible. Yeah, your winning percentage sucks, bro. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Back in the early days of coaching, there was an elite level bikini team called Team Bombshell, and they were turning bitches right and left pro. And so I was coaching Angel at the time, and it was getting to the point where, she'd already done a national level show, she'd done well. And I was like, you know what? Like, I still want to train you, but like, let's give your nutrition to over to people who really specifically work with bikini girls. And listen, they were churning people. And it was a high price point. And so she bought the coaching, and it was probably the most ridiculous shit I'd ever seen. But I was like, you know what? If it's working, like, let's try it. Like, what does it hurt? So the nutrition plan made total sense in terms of on paper, but it was not well thought out because it would say, like, they would try to say, here are substitutions, and it'd be like a protein and a fat source. And then over here, it's like protein and carbs. And I'm like, that's not a substitution.
Yeah.
Those aren't the same. So I was like, you know what? Let me turn that part of my brain off, even though I'm like, that drives me batshit crazy. They would give her these workouts that would take 90 minutes, and that's with me loading plates and doing all the hard work where she would just sit there and go, right? And I remember she put on, because one of the coaching questions was, how long did your workout take? So we wrote down how long each workout took. And the coach responded back, there's no way that takes you more than 60 minutes. And I said, there is no physically way you could do that any faster. It's impossible. And the lady was like, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, we aren't doing it wrong. So I always laugh at that. And their reasoning was, we turned 14 people pro at nationals last year. Well, then next thing you know, fast forward 3 years later after she stopped using them because it was not even remotely custom. It was fucking copy and paste job. Because
Hmm.
we have other people's names at the top of it, which kind of made me sick to think about.
Yeah.
And all these stories came out about how the success rate was like below 20%. It was like, oh, yeah,
Hmm.
they turned 14 people pro at nationals, they're right, but they coached 120,
Hmm.
all which were all like DNPs. So it's like you have to be leery of, in my mind, as you said, is if you have a system and not being flexible off of it,
Yeah.
only being able to implement it one way. And then to go back to another point you made, like I always will laugh at those people who they talk about specifically drugs and have never used it. If you
Yeah.
never fucking put Tren in you, I don't want to hear your opinion on it. I'm sorry. Like you have no way to say how it's going to react in your body. At this
Hmm.
point, I've had God knows how many guys use Tren. Notice I said guys. That wasn't a technical term. That was literally men. And I've had people all over the spectrum from loving it to hating it, and then everyone in the middle.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, the dosages that people can use vary drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I have all seen horror stories of guys using grams of Tren. I can't
Hmm.
speak to that because I've never done it. And neither of you. um, but I've also seen people do really, really well off of 10 to 20 MIGs a day.
Yeah.
10, that wasn't an exaggeration. 10 to 20 I about said micrograms, milligrams.
Yeah.
So, again, it's absolutely laughable to me when you have people out there speaking about those things when they've never used them, and they're like, "Oh, well, Chris, I've read the chemical compounds and what they're supposed to do," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you realize that each substance taken also works in harmony with other substances you take,
Yeah.
right? Like I,
Well, I think with Trent too, people don't realize what like that was a cattle drug.
oh, right.
Like like you used to be able to go to the farmer store and get the Phenoplex tabs. And the dosage wise always made me laugh when people were doing like a gram.
Right. Yeah.
Because do you know how many milligrams came in one of the tabs they gave a fucking cow?
No.
200 milligrams. And that was for a week. 4,000 pound cow.
Right.
And it did its job.
Correct. Yes.
So just throwing that out there for everybody. Like obviously we're not cows, but
Right.
I
Right.
none of you guys weigh 4,000 pounds.
No, no, no. You don't need 200 megs a day.
Yeah. 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 200 milligrams a week for a full size cow.
Yeah. And I think you've talked about this too. Like, there's that one lady on the internet who always talks about like men's bulking and blasting cycles and pre-contest. I'm like, will you please just be quiet and stay in your lane?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can know that. That's totally fine. Like, but like, please stop telling people what to run.
Right. When you might be 140 on a good day.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So for me, that what you just said, enormously huge. I think I can tell you this. I'll speak for myself. Every person I ever hired as a coach, I knew their track record, both personally and with clients. And
Yeah.
I think that was a big deal for me. I really related to all the coaches who I worked with because they still were in the game of bodybuilding. And
Yeah.
it almost felt like they were in the trenches with me. Like they're still learning, they're still progressing. They aren't just sitting behind the computer all day, like helping people win. Because that's a different mindset to me. And that's
Yeah.
something that I always respected about John is even though he retired from competitive bodybuilding, he still continued to get in the gym and work every week. And that forever process of trying to learn and figure out new cool ways to grow muscle and to get better.
Mhm.
I know that's what I want to do when I stop bodybuilding to go back to that topic, but like I'll never stop training because you almost lose a level of respect in my mind when if I would to do that, right? Like if you were to come in town and I was just to train you and I was 175 pounds, no,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry. I may not still be slinging around the 150-pound dumbbells with you, but motherfucker, I'm gonna pick up those 120s and give them a go.
Yeah.
Like it, it, I'll still be able to get on a hack squat, even though it might be down two or three, four plates from you, and I'm gonna take that bitch to the end. Like it's just going to be the truth. So yeah, for me, that's something that's huge. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but to go back to my original point is I had to see success both personally and with clients.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into what we just talked about is at the same time, this creates a red flag is coaches who are really good at marketing. Um,
Yeah.
so I always say be leery of those people who have really, really gorgeous looking marketing, but if you pay close attention and watch, they always, this is a red flag for me. If you include yourself in one of your testimonials, like even though you may have done it, if you're the star of every fucking ad, I'm always leery. I'm like, okay, you
Yeah.
know how to do it for you, but anyone else, I don't know. If you're in there, respect, because I'll put myself in my testimonials occasionally, but it's littered with other people.
Hmm.
So that's something I'm always curious of is watch those transformations and say, hey, cool, like he took someone with suboptimal genetics or someone who was really like I was, meaning either skinny or overweight or out of shape or didn't have shoulders or chest or legs. And how did they fix that? That's something I always really want to pay attention to.
Hmm.
And to always be having new clients doing that is huge as well, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's always
Yeah.
this, is there some coaches out there who are still using testimonials from 2012?
Yeah.
Awesome. I've seen that at this point thousands of times. Show me somebody new, please.
Yeah.
Have you,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just something I'm thinking about. Like, are there anything like marketing wise that you always look for that's like very gimmicky or something that you're like, oh man, that's not a good look?
Oh, it drives me up. Well, like you said, when they promote themselves, they're like, or I mean, like Dave Tate goes over this all the time. He's like, 3 spots left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great one to look out for. Yes.
It's like, what?
Yeah. And even though I've seen Branch do that, it still makes me upset.
Yeah, same, same.
I'm like, oh, please no, please don't. Yes, that 3 spots left, or DM me shredded, and I'll show you how to take your dad bod to
Yeah,
PO. Bro, stop it.
yeah,
It's almost like what does Tyler say? You're doing too much. Like, stop it.
yeah,
Let your work.
yeah. I absolutely hate seeing those 30-day transformations.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I honestly like my favorite thing on coaching from seeing things from this perspective what I can
Mhm.
is I see people compete all the time. I go to most of the bodybuilding shows here in Utah,
Mhm.
and if I see someone compete and then 3 months later they're a bag of shit,
Yeah.
and then 3 months later they're competing again,
Yep.
and I find out who their coach is, I'm like, this guy knows jack shit and is just wanting to make money.
Correct. Agreed.
Versus when I see someone compete and then rebound really well,
Yep. Yep.
go into an off season, and then do another show and improve drastically. And I know who that coach is. It's like, fuck yeah, man. Like that's what I love seeing. But when I see the same person compete year after year
Yep.
with the same coach and they make zero changes,
Yep. Agreed.
like that is the biggest red flag for me
Agreed.
because that tells me two things, maybe three things actually. Either the coach doesn't know what he's doing,
Yep.
the coach is totally fine with absolutely shitty check-ins.
Yep.
You know, I know between me and you, every time we have a check-in, some sort of progress has happened.
Yes.
You
Agreed.
know, that's the goal of the fucking week.
Yep. If not, I'm changing something.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the last one is someone's not wired correctly,
Yep.
right? So if you compete the same fucking weight class, the same level of division, NPC show, NPC local NPC show every fucking time, you keep taking fifth
Yep.
and you look the same or progressively worse,
Yep. Yep.
what's happening behind the scenes?
Agreed. Yep.
Either training, nutrition, your diet, like any drugs need to be assessed.
Right.
You
Right.
know, all of it, something did not work at all.
Right. Yep. Agreed. To me, what that also says is someone's scared to lose a client because of a tough conversation, right?
Yeah.
And there have been multiple times where I've said to people, either you're not following the plan or you need to fire me.
Yeah.
I've
And that's all. I
never,
mean, that's a fun conversation to have, but like at the same time, it's just like I've called out so many people for cheating on their plans,
yeah, right.
and I'm blunt with it, but like I'm like, here's two things. It makes you look bad because you're going to show up out of shape. And
Yep.
then that makes me look bad because you're out of shape on stage,
Correct. Yep.
you know? And let's think about this logically. If you give me information what's not correct,
Mhm.
I'm going to make a decision based on incorrect information.
Yep. Yeah.
And then you're going to have a plan what is based off the lie you told me, not the actual thing that happened. So what do you think is going to happen?
Yep. Yeah. It's not going to go well.
Yeah. This is how people end up doing hours on hours of cardio
Yes.
and eating zero food.
Agreed. I'll give you a great example of that. I had 4 guys at a bodybuilding show once, and I called them over the Airbnb. We were saying everyone posed in front of me together, and then one was not like the rest. And I remember him looking at me, the other three faces sunk in incredible shape. And he looked at me and he said, I clearly am not doing what those three are. And I said, yeah, there's no way, right? I said, because I can't fuck up one when I'm showing you 3 examples of what happens when you follow the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he proceeded to tell me all the little shit what he called little shit, added up.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's not little when you extrapolate that over an off season and a pre-contest phase. So let's say that's a 24-week off season and a 12-week prep. That's 36 weeks. That little ball of snow that you start rolling is now a fucking boulder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that, you know, you and I, as you said at the start of this, we realized early that you and I can't cut corners.
Yep.
We have to go to the end and then take a sharp left or right, however you're running. And I think so many think, oh, well, I had an extra cheat meal and he said I look great or I'm progressing. So then that turns into a third cheat meal or it continues all the way through the prep. And you're like, something's not working. I don't understand. I'm
Hmm.
following the plan. No, you're following the plan you made for your fucking self.
Hmm.
Like you and I have said this many times. There's a difference in cardio and then doing cardio. Like, even though it is low intensity, there's a difference. I mean, when you and I were pedaling that bike at that Golds in California, we were drenched in sweat.
Hmm.
There's a reason. You were the week of your show, and I was in the middle of the fucking off season. I could have easily just set up and pedaled easy and text Angel on my phone, scrolled Instagram, but no, I
Yeah.
wasn't choosing that option.
Yeah. We really couldn't even talk to each other because our heart rate was elevated enough. It was like, I wasn't like, when we were talking, we were missing breaths we needed to breathe,
Yes.
you know? So, like, you should keep that in mind. If you're able to do your cardio and have a conversation with someone, the reason you're doing cardio is not happening.
Agreed. Agreed. And there's no worse feeling, honestly, as a coach as being in that situation I just described to you, because you want all four of those guys to be peeled out of their fucking mind.
Hmm.
But I can't go in the gym and do those reps that hurt. I
Hmm.
can't measure your fish to 8 fucking ounces, not 8.2 or 7.9. I can't, when I give you a high carb day and I say 225 grams of rice, I don't mean 265 because it's a high carb day and you put extra sauce on it. And oh, by the way, you added some bullshit to your meal because your kid offered you candy corn. No, no, that doesn't fucking count. I can't say no to that.
Hmm.
Or if you go on a long trip with your, say, girlfriend to a pumpkin patch and you choose to eat fucking corn dogs over chicken and rice because you were too lazy to pack your fucking meal. I can't do that for you.
Yeah.
But that falls on my shoulders, as you said, is when the competitor comes out and it's like competitor 47, Dave White, trains with Chris Edmonds with Team Mountain Dog. Fuck off, man.
Yeah.
I don't want that billboard.
No, no one does, right?
Don't put my name on that shit. Like, I created a plan that you didn't execute, and now you or someone will blame me. Chris the moron.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing. Listen, man, I'm not saying I don't. I'm not saying I nail everything 100% of the time, but I will not bring someone in fat. That is your active decision.
Hmm.
So I think to go back to what you and I said, like it's that tough conversations you aren't scared to have with people. If I thought for 1 minute you weren't doing what you needed to do on a certain body part or meal plan or cardio, I would have no problems telling you that. Hey, what's going on here? Why haven't your legs progressed in the last 6 months? You tell me you're training them hard. Can you show me? And you send me video, and we'll find out real quick if you're training them right or not. Like,
Yeah. That's my favorite thing when I ask for a video and they're like, I forgot to take it. I was like, you fucking took a selfie that day.
you thought about
Posted
that
that
shit.
selfie on your yeah. I was like, like how hard would it have been to prop your fucking phone up on a water bottle? Don't ask for, it doesn't need to be a video quality fit. Can I see the movement and can I see what's happening in it from a competent angle? Like film your hack squats from the side, not from behind the machine.
Or on the ground where you can't see jack shit.
Yeah.
I have no perception here. Can you? I, uh, you know what? I always joke, Chaz. I'm like, we need to film a video on how to film yourself for a set. And he's like,
Yeah.
why in the fuck would you? I'm like, you would be surprised what I see.
Yeah. I've seen
Like,
some.
I mean, it's really sad that I had to make an Instagram story on how to crop your fucking video. Like,
Mhm.
really? Like, if I'm gonna send John a video of me doing leg press, I'm not gonna make him watch me set up the camera, sit down on the machine, take a deep breath, cinch my belt in, undo the fucking carriage. I'm gonna get to the point where I'm getting ready to do my first rep. When he
Yeah.
play, it's instant leg press. Um, that to me is, I guess I just showed you how much I valued his time. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna make him waste 30 seconds or even having to, and people be like, Chris, can't you just move the bar? Oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
Can't you
I
just
had
slide
one
it in?
person. I had one person. I was like, "Can you send me a couple of your workouts?"
Yeah.
They legitimately filmed their entire goddamn workout
Oh, Jesus
and
Christ.
sent it to me, and it was 74 minutes long. I didn't even open it. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's like they just had the whole thing. I was like, that's not what I like. I was like, I need, the minute where you're on the hack squat.
I only want the one that counts, man.
Like, how much time do you think I have on my hands? I'm gonna watch a fucking movie of like the world's worst fucking movie. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't even edit the bullshit.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because here's what's funny, right? Is I think like when Chaz films us with training, I think he might have like 20-ish minutes of actual footage, and then it pares it down to 10. And honestly, if I need a set, I don't even need 10 minutes of that shit, man. Like
yeah,
meat and potatoes. Give me the shit that counts. Yeah, it's from a coach's standpoint, and listen, I've been around, God, so many at stage on show day for people, and coaches are just filling their clients full of bullshit. Like, we all know if the client's in shape or not. It takes a quick second to look and glance. And if you're telling them they're peeled and they are not, just literally say nothing. Like, you don't have to lie, you don't have to lie to them. Like,
yeah,
I've been there and I've had clients ask me in the past, like, Chris, where do you think I should have placed? Right where you did. We can change that, but it's going to take 6 months to 12 months of work.
yeah,
Or, I mean, listen, especially at national level shows, the idea of you're going to go in there and win the first one is you're a small percentage, man. Like, you'll step on that first time national stage, and a lot of people, even if they finish top 10, will be like, fuck me, I have a lot of ground to make up.
mhm,
Like, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Yeah, you're right.
mhm.
You're right.
Yeah. The amount of people, I mean, like even just at USA's this year, the amount of that backstage, dude, I saw so many guys like, oh man, I'm fucking peeled. It's like fourth call outs,
Yep. Yep.
right? Or their coach was like, man, you're peeled, and then I take my fucking clothes off, and he looks at me like, the fuck is that? It's like, oh, okay, like maybe a coach doesn't know what skinless means.
Yes. Right. And that's tough too, I think. It goes back to your original point of experience. If you've never seen multiple bodies, male, female, different divisions, what true and being in shape for a bodybuilding show looks like, you have no recollection of what someone needs to get to. You don't. And I always will tell people that my idea of peeled always evolved until I met John, and then it stayed there. There are different levels of peeled that other people have achieved throughout bodybuilding history, but that level I've yet to see achieved with my own two eyes,
Yeah,
other than him. And I know that sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, he has this and that, and maybe so and so's glutes were more like striated or whatever." Unless you saw him in person on show day in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years of his career, you don't understand. And anyone who has will tell you this: that motherfucker is peeled. The Arnold he did, where he placed last, which was total bullshit. I've never seen that level of conditioning.
yeah.
None, never. So I mean, I know a lot of people like might argue that like Derek from the back, but notice I had to quantify that with from the back. There
Or go
wasn't.
take a gander at Michaela Aycock.
Yes.
Like she blows most open men's bodybuilders out of the water conditioning wise.
Agreed.
Like on stage, it's almost like comical on like the women's bodybuilding stage.
Yep.
It's just like, what the hell is that? It's like it's a drastic difference, and it's amazing.
Right. And I'm not, this is gonna sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, but when Keena stood beside her, I said, you're out muscled, but your conditioning is very close.
Mhm.
And she didn't even understand in the moment, like what kind of compliment that was. I was like, no, you don't understand. Like that is like Mount Rushmore of
Yeah,
conditioning. And you're holding
yeah,
your own with that.
yeah.
I was like, we just need more muscle. And I think she's slowly starting to realize that the more she spent time like MI40 and around a lot of the other pros and things, and she would be like, Chris, like no one has this kind of conditioning except for Michaela. And I'm like, yep, you know how to suffer. Like there's just a different level. I remember when we were backstage in Chicago and she stripped down and hit a couple shots for Danny, and she was like, "What in the fuck, Chris?" I was like, "She's ready, right?" And you know the greatest thing about her is she'll tell me how fat she is the whole show day.
Yeah, just like Roman Fritz.
Yes, yes, yeah. I'll tell you a funny story with them
Like
backstage.
back to our first topic on here,
Yep.
right? Like every single all of us, like, what can they do better? Like
Yes,
Roman Fritz, Michaela, like, I bet you in the back of their head they're like, I could have been leaner.
yes,
This body part needs to come up. This needs to be better. And you look at them, you're like, damn, this is fucking crazy. Like,
yes.
but also you're not them. Because
Yep.
like I've had people say the same things to me. They're like, man, you look fucking crazy. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is nothing. It's like I need to improve this, my arms, my fucking everything. Like
Yes.
everything from the neck down needs to get bigger.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So her boyfriend and I were standing backstage with her, and she was having a moment of just nerves before she went out for the open in Chicago. And she's like, Chris, like I just feel like there's so much more fat left on me. And I looked at her, I said, where? And she named all these areas. And I said, okay, cool. I want you to do me a favor. I was like, you see my hand here? I was like, if you can find more skin than that anywhere on your body, show me. And I want you to pinch it. And she looks at me. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Grab all those areas, separate the skin from the muscle, and show me where the fat is. And he's dying laughing at this point, by the way. And she's like, I can't do it. I'm like, right. I was like, that's my point. And he's like, see what I live with, Chris? I'm like, listen, you are in shape. Take a deep breath. Know that you've done everything in your power to this point to be your best and just go out there and rock it out. Like, which is why I think I always relate to those clients and competitors very, very well. It's like, she is a prime example of someone who busts her ass, isn't genetically gifted and good at bodybuilding, but yet has found a way to take a craft that she loves to do or a hobby that she loves to do and milk every singular inch out of her physique.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that's honestly the same reason why I'm a huge fan of Michaela Aycock.
yep.
Like, just I love watching her fucking story. She posts her training all the time, and it's the same fucking thing every
Yep.
fucking time,
Yep.
and every time it's fucking better.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, and it's fucking perfect. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's the craziest thing too, because like if you ever watch like her videos, you're like, that rep was excruciating,
Yes.
and then she does 15 more of them
Yep.
perfectly.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I need to find this place where she's going because holy shit.
Yeah. When she puts that shirt in her mouth, you know it gets
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Her training very much reminds me a lot of it's like that video I sent you of JP.
Yeah.
Like it there is no doubt there's a reason those two are so wildly successful in this world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the sad thing is most people may not watch that and appreciate it quite as much as like you and I do, you know, like because that's what I will call training. There's a early on in my bodybuilding, I used to have this friend who was a mutual friend of my buddy and I, and he would always say, "Why do y'all always call what y'all do training like it's a workout?" And I'm like, "No, there's people who work out and then we train." And he's like, "I don't understand." And I said, "Well, my thought process is like soccer moms and normal people go in the gym, they work out. It's no different than I played football. We trained for football to be better at it. And you call it training because you're chasing something every day when you wake up. I said, those
Yep.
people who you see working out, they wake up and do it because they were told to do it or they think they should.
Yeah. Or I
We,
mean, like, honestly, like having like a reason why you're going in there and trying to better yourself to some degree is going to be damaging
yep,
to musculature. That's why you're doing it. That's why you can rebuild and grow better.
right.
But like if you show up to the gym and you just pick random fucking things to do and lift weights till you're exhausted, right? Like, oh, I ran 2 miles and then I benched 225 for six and then I did some curls. It's like that definitely you burn fucking calories, right? But
Yep.
if you don't do that again progressively,
Right.
like you're being alive and that's fucking phenomenal. Like I'm not saying anything about that, but it's very different from having a set plan and beating what you did the workout prior.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know, like just going in and fucking around is honestly sometimes awesome.
Right. Yes.
But like it is gonna some degree you're gonna have benefit out of it, but also like depending on how you do that. Like if I'm like, oh, I ran 2 miles, threw a sandball, medicine ball at the ground 10 times, and did some burpees. If I did that, like I've never done either of those things in like years. Like,
Right.
what the fuck was that? But like, no, it's never gonna be like, oh, it's drastically changed from that.
And you'd probably be sore. You would probably wake
Yeah,
up and be like, God, why does this hurt?
yeah,
You're like, my serratus are fucked. What did I do? You did something different. You didn't do anything progressive.
yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. All right. So back to coaches. Anything like other like major red flags? For me, I can tell you this, response time is huge. If it's more than 24 hours, that's being generous, by the way. If it's more than a day, fucking fire that person unless someone's in the hospital they love or they are. Like,
Hmm.
it- there are times, listen, I will text you at 10:30 and be like, you all right? Where's your update?
Yeah,
Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, fuck, something happened to him. Something's wrong. This isn't normal.
yeah.
Where, let's say you send me your update and it's 12 o'clock my time, or I guess 10 o'clock your time. You'd probably be like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Is he alive?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't some good coaches out there whose response time's a little bit longer. I think I've told you that when I worked with Matt Porter, he was in Vegas time, and when I woke up in the morning at 4 or 5 or 6, like he's still in bed. So I don't expect within a 10 or 20 minute response. Like that's not normal. Like that's not going to happen.
Hmm.
John, for example, was never going to respond to me unless it was show day before 8 o'clock a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern. Um, I don't think either of them were bad coaches because they took longer than, because I sent them at weird times for them.
Hmm.
Where Shelby's example, I can send them an update at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd have a response in 10 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the acceptable response time, like the max, if something major isn't wrong?
Definitely. I'd say about 10 hours.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
That'd be the maximum amount of time. It'd be, like there's some things where it's just like, I cannot believe how long that's gone through. Like, I could see like things like, okay, cool. Like, let's update your training. And like, that takes a second,
Yes, agreed.
but like, it's not really going to fucking matter.
No,
But
no,
like, I've seen people not get they do a show and they don't get their post show plan for 2 weeks.
unacceptable.
And it's just like, what the fuck happened here?
Yep.
There could have been some guidance, like, because that lack of guidance is where that's where all the problems come from.
Well, I agree.
You could, if you, for me, for example, like if you disappeared the day after show day for 2 weeks, like I'm pretty fucking knowledgeable, but at the same time, like I probably just fucking eat myself, like eat nothing, for 2 weeks and just waste time.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I'll always like I've always thought this immediately post show, people tend to be beyond motivated. Capitalize on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like feed into it. Either they won and they want to get better and go to the next level, or they lost and they're like, fuck that, never again.
yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna lean into that. Like I've always thought, because I think like I'll put on my new client emails, like I don't work on Sundays.
Mhm.
Well, I don't do regular client updates on Sundays, but if I had somebody compete on Saturday, I'm working on Sunday to get them a post-show plan if I haven't already worked on it Saturday night. Um,
Mhm.
and that way, when they wake up after their show, they know what they're going to eat for today. They know what they're going to eat for tomorrow. They know what they need to do for cardio. And then I'll give them some sort of direction training wise until I have their full training plan built.
Mhm.
And it isn't like just go and train. No, fuck off. It's like, let's, how do your legs feel? My legs can go. Let's do it. Let's hit a leg day. Okay, here's a YouTube video. Do this.
Mhm.
Or here's the exact
We have
written.
a full on discussion every time. I mean, it's not like yeah, it's
It's
not
not
just like, oh, this is what's going to work. It's like, let's talk this through and figure out what's actually happening.
correct. Correct. And I will always ask this: are there any foods you're burnt out on? Are there any foods that you miss? Like, because if you're tired of eating fucking chicken, I'm not going to give it to you. Like, why? Like, there's no reason turkey and fish and steak and ground beef and bison and all that shit we couldn't work into your plan. Like, or you're like, hey, because to me that's another thing that people like go wrong with post-show binge eating is their coach keeps them on the same plan that they fucking hate. Where it's like, yo, I could give you some pineapple and you probably won't want to eat a thing of Ben and Jerry's as nearly as much,
Mhm.
for example. Or, if I give you a big ass bowl of cream of rice post lift with Rice Krispie treats, why is there any reason you need to go eat fucking cake? Kind of my thought process.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's also, I mean, I've had that before. I had one client come to me like 2 weeks post show because, like, well, he was just pissed because his coach gave him like 10 extra grams of carbs from the week before. And by the way, this dude was peeled. Like, his
okay.
coach did a good job dieting him, but I was
Yes.
like, he's just like, dude, I can't stick to the plan. I keep just fucking off. And like, my coach was pissed. And like, he just dropped me because like, I can't follow it. And I was like, could you eat this? And I legitimately gave him a plan. It was like, you know, 200 grams of carbs more than he was eating,
Right. Yeah.
and he's like, of course I can eat that. He's like, I'm fucking, a week later, he's like, dude, I didn't miss the fucking meal. I didn't eat anything outside of the plan. And I was like, cool. Cause like in reality, that's 800 calories.
Correct.
Him dinking around and like having a Costco muffin because he can't, because he's like, he feels restricted.
Yep.
That's 800 fucking calories right there.
Agreed.
Versus of rice, do you think that's going to add fat the same way as a Costco muffin?
But,
It's just like, all right, cool. Let's work with you here because
yeah.
that's the thing is like most people that his show's done. He doesn't have another one planned. It's like, all right, how do we stop? We don't want massive amounts of body fat accumulation, but we need some.
Correct. Yes.
We need to get training back to being efficient.
Yes.
If training's in a fucking hole, fix that because everything, all of your responses because of training.
Yep. And I need you progress focused, not food focused.
Yeah.
Like if you're walking around in a constant state of starving still, and listen, you and I both know you'll still be very hungry.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between 300 grams of good carbs and bullshit food.
Yeah.
And to me, it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like the more bullshit you eat, I've always found the more you crave it. And it creates this nasty cycle. It's like drug abuse. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of is.
yeah, yeah. And that post-show window, again, is so fucking fragile, which is why I keep most of my guys and girls on twice a week updates,
Mhm.
if not more. Because I'm like, the more frequently you have to check in, that's just more accountability mirror. It forces you to get up and take those fucking photos that you may not want to take because you ate like bullshit. And you have to tell me, like, hey, at least the ones who are good. Chris, I fucked off on my diet. I nailed meals 1 through 5, and then I ate a ton of bullshit before bed. Okay, cool. How can we prevent you from doing this? Can I add you a seventh meal? Yes. Cool. What sounds amazing to you? Chicken, rice, bowl of gains, and a banana. Fuck yeah. We can do that before bed. Do it. Next thing you know, their progress just starts skyrocketing.
Mhm.
All I did there was not be an idiot. And I didn't scold them and be like, oh, you're a piece of shit. Like, how could you? I praise them and say, thank you for telling me the truth. We're gonna figure this out together. I promise.
Mhm.
And again, to go back to another coaching point that I think is huge is being adaptable is enormous. Like there are some right ways to do things, but isn't always right for everyone. And if you have thought that is flexible and you're like, okay, cool, like they're currently failing, how can I get them to fail less?
Mhm.
Eventually we'll get back to perfect because if I'm speaking about the rebound, right? I don't believe in my heart that you can follow a 16, 18, 20 week diet to perfection and then you immediately lose that ability after the show's over. You don't. If you're perfect for that huge chunk of pre-contest, I know we can get you back there. It just may take a little bit of work on my end and some restraint on your end. And if we work
Mhm.
together instead of being mad at each other, it will go so much further. Because there's obviously times where I've had clients that frustrate me and I'm like, dear God, like I just want you to just nail this. And then other times where I'm like, okay, cool, like yeah, I wanted to nail this, but I have to figure out a way that's gonna help them get there. And sometimes, like, even though it may not be the way you or I personally would do it, we maybe ease into that pool a little bit. And like, okay, cool. Like, what if every third day I gave you a free meal with your wife or girlfriend? Okay, cool. And then we knock it another two, and then we go back to our normal one free meal a week, and then it's normal. Like, okay, cool. Again, that's just me being flexible, right? Um, so yeah, let's see. Any other red flags that jump out at you for coaching?
Ooh, man, I think probably one of the bigger ones is the I mean that's super popular now, but the guys who are just like going over like every single fucking detail of a cycle, and they're so drug focused. Like the drug focused people on Instagram take notes on what they look like in 4 years.
Yes. Yep.
You know, like, and then realize what this sport is not a sport. It's not a race.
Right.
If it is a race, it's a fucking marathon.
Yep.
You know, it's not a 100-yard dash. You can't just like you can't gas pedal always. You know, and the
And
people who are so drug focused, especially coaching wise, like a gram of test and a gram of fucking trend and 20 IU's of growth hormone works until it doesn't.
yeah. Yeah.
And then what are you gonna do when your digestion's fucked, your insulin sensitivity's fucked,
Yeah.
you know, you just fucking feel like ass.
Yep.
Your hematocrit's like at like 25.
Your hands have been numb for 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's like, cool, good luck fixing that. And then while you're fixing that, you're making zero progress
Yes. Yep. You know what's really
versus the
funny?
guy who, the guy on the other side of the street who took 500 milligrams of test, no trend, and 3 units of growth hormone. And a year later, that guy looks a million times better than the dude who looked amazing for 3 months and then fucking killed himself with side effects.
Yep. What's so interesting is the next one that I said was going to be somewhere close. I was going to say the over reliance on drugs to mask good coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So all that ties in, right? Like, as you said, in the short run, I could abuse your body with drugs and you could look incredible for one show or one off season or one period of time. But the long term ramifications that aren't worth it to me. That ratio of the seesaw doesn't balance at all, as opposed to just slow and steady approach, slowly tick it up if we need to, find your sweet spot, and then ride that bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I've seen some pre-contest protocols where I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, that's what you're on?
Yeah.
Now, I know that's weird, right? Because in last week I said that, oh, you'd be underwhelmed by what pros took. These weren't pros that I was
Yeah, no,
speaking.
I've seen some protocols for some local level bikini competitors, and I'm like, fucking Christ.
Yeah,
Like, there's some horses what have less androgens in their race cycles than this.
yeah, yeah. You know, don't mishear me. Drugs definitely are strong and potent and powerful and work and can do crazy things in the short run if you abuse them, but it's never the right way, in my opinion. It's
No.
just, and there are coaches who, in my mind, like they rely on that a little too heavy, right? Like, and you see this a lot of times, specifically with females, where you're just blasting them with Clen and T3 through the fucking roof. And like, hey, like, how about instead of just swallowing more pills, we talk to them about how to properly exercise with intensity, or as we just talked about, making your cardio count. I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that Clen and T3 aren't effective, but when you get over 100 micrograms a piece of those for a 120-pound woman, I think this is too much, man. Like, here's a fun fact. If yours goes above 50 micrograms, I'm like, I don't fucking like it. I want to be there as little as possible. And then I'm starting to taper that shit down.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on stage over 200 pounds. And I said 50. And that wasn't for a whole prep, by the way. That's like the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
and it won't be 50 the whole, it might be 50 for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I'm like, ooh, take that bitch down to 25. Like once the fat's off. So I think that over reliance on especially specifically fat burners for women is crazy. Like I just saw a protocol for a woman where 16 weeks out, they were implementing Clean and T3. And I'm like, if you don't get super fat in the off season, why in the fuck do you need that?
Hmm.
It goes back to again, just shitty time management of a prep and an off season. Like if you came to me, Chris, and said I need a shotgun prep 8 weeks, would we probably throw some of that in there? Maybe, but maybe not. Like
Yeah.
in a scenario where we're in a perfect spot in the off season and we start a prep at 16 or 12 weeks out, I'm not going to have you use that at least for the first month and a half.
Yeah.
So believe that or not, I don't give a fuck. It's the truth.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, I think a lot of times with coaching in today's time, like is integrity is the thing we should probably finish on.
Yeah.
A lot of times people say, Chris, what does integrity mean? That means when I tell you something, I follow through with it. If I say I'm going to get you a plan for your training and I'll have it to you by Tuesday, it's going to be there by Tuesday and probably earlier. Like,
Hmm.
I felt bad. I made you that new leg day and somehow you missed it. And I was like, oh, shit. You're probably like, where in the
Yeah.
fuck was that plan? I'm like, no, I sent
Yeah, you
it.
definitely said it. I was
Right.
like, it's just so funny because like I don't know what it is with iPhones, but sometimes they don't give notifications on emails,
Agreed. Yes. Yep.
right? And then I was just like, what the fuck? Like
Right.
it was like I've been like, I knew it was coming, but I was just like, oh sweet. Like I was legitimately I'm like I was just like browsing through it. I was like, Jesus, how the fuck did I miss this?
Yeah. Um, also I think a big one is too, right, is if you're gonna help someone prepare for a contest prep, your job is to give them adequate plans that make sense and when on a timeline, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's from both spectrums. If you're giving me a peak week plan, if we talked about a week out, garbage. You're lazy and you don't want to work on the weekend. That's what that says to me. Or work every morning when you send me your update. Or on the flip side, if I know you're going to get up to do your cardio at 6 a.m. and I sleep until 8 and I didn't tell you the night before how much cardio I wanted, that's lazy on my part. I either need to wake up or I need to preload you with some cardio. On your
Mhm.
PM check-in on Thursday for Friday, I'm like, hey, Dave, wake up tomorrow morning, give me 30 minutes of cardio, send me fasted check-ins, and then after you get me at 1 in. By then, I'll be awake and I'll have your whole rest of your day planned. Awesome. I have no problem doing that because I've trained lots of people international where, you know, their wake up time is 1 a.m. my time. Unless
Mhm.
it's a peak week or a show day, I'm not going to be up then. So I just have to plan accordingly. Like, how many meals will you have before I see your check-in? You'll have two. Okay, cool. Here's what the two I want you to eat. And then I'll plan the rest of your day. Does that work? Yeah. Okay, great. Um, so that's what I mean by integrity, right? Like that is something that always falls through the cracks, in my opinion. I've
Mhm.
heard horror stories of coaches like taking money and then not giving service. That's you're just a dirtbag. You stole from you. Like if you paid me for coaching and I didn't give you a plan, like I'm literally stealing from you. That's how I look at it. Like, and that's
Yeah.
not acceptable.
Yeah, I think it's really funny when people pay me for coaching and then just ghost me the entire time. And
Agreed.
then show up 3 months later, they're like, hey, why'd you charge me for this? It's like, dude, you paid me for it. And then you never responded to any of my text messages. That's not my problem. But doing the opposite is definitely a dirtbag move.
Yeah. Um, and then the final piece there is like just being a decent person, I think. Like there is some tact to telling someone you're fucking up.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm the king of it. Like I have no problem calling people out, but I don't have to berate you and beat you over the coals. 9 times out of 10, that person already feels bad about themselves.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some coaching communication back and forth with people, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like my dad didn't even fuss at me like that as a child for fucking up. Like, like
Yeah.
so there's a little bit like if I had five guys instead of beef and rice, and I test John that, he'd be like, come on, man, like just be better. And that would make that it's all you have to say to me, just be better. Like I expect better. Um, you don't need to say, oh, you're a huge piece of shit. How could you fail me like that? Like Don't make it personal.
Yeah.
And you know what? And here's the final piece of integrity. And I hate that I even have to fucking go down this route, but it's the truth. If you're a dude and you take advantage of women, you're a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
If you're a female out there, do not send nude photos to your coach. The
Yeah. We
least
don't.
amount of clothes you need on is what you'll wear on stage. And
Mhm.
I stand firmly behind that. And I've had people say, like, oh, Chris, like, don't you want to see the muscle in their back? Yeah, I don't need a giant sports bra. But your posing suit is the judges are going to judge you in that. So
Mhm.
fucking wear it. It's as simple as that. I don't need to see your nipples. I'm sorry. There's, they're never going to be judged. I don't give a fuck. Don't give me that. Like, and if the coach is asking you for it, fire them and run and ask for them a refund. Tell them
Mhm.
they're a dirtbag. Um, yeah, there's no scenario where anything remotely sexual should ever come up in a conversation or an email. It shouldn't. And if you're a coach and someone messages you like that, just shut it the fuck down. It's
Mhm.
simple as that. Because listen, on the other side, there are probably clients who may want something extracurricular from you as a coach. You have to have the integrity to shut that down because they're paying you for a service, not to be serviced.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the best way to put it. So I know there's a lot of dirtbags in our industry of coaching, and I think the reason I know I always like having these conversations is you and I aren't that way, and it gives us and our job a bad rap because so many people take advantage of others and or give bad service or bad advice or just simply bad coaching. And at the end of the day, there are good coaches, there are great coaches, and there are okay coaches, and you have to realize that you may catch a coach when he's coming up and doesn't know a lot. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't learn and get better. And on the flip side of that, I've seen some really good coaches become lazy and complacent and become shitty coaches. So
Mhm.
know that when you're working with someone. And never be scared to, in my mind, like voice an opinion.
Yeah.
Say, hey, like, I'd really like you to do fill in the blank. Okay, cool. Well, I'd really like you to do this. Okay, great. It's a working partnership. It's how I've always looked at it. So if you
Yep.
want to be ultimately successful, that's why you and I have always worked really well together. You're not scared to voice your opinions. You're also not scared to follow orders. So that's the best coaching and client relationship I think anyone can ever have is
Mhm.
you respect me enough to work your ass off, and then I respect you enough to give you a plan that I think is the absolute best for you in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's how we've always worked well together. So, and there's not times where either of us might fuck that up. And then we fix it and move on. It's as simple as
Mhm.
that. You can't work with someone for a considerable amount of time, which to me is over 2 years, and not have a point where you're just like, ah, man, like I really missed that.
Mhm.
Or you may read something like, oh man, like I didn't know that's what you expected. Like it's something as simple as that. Okay, cool. Like let's resolve that and then move forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. If you guys have any coaching red flags, post those in the comments below. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. And until next time, Chris and Dave, we are done for this Monday.